Hey, Grand Rising. So, I'm coming to you from Sutton 1 Rites of Passage, and today we're talking to Petey and Phoebe about going to church. They asked me about going to participate in a live viewing of a church service with some of their friends, and I told them no. So, of course, they wanted to know why. And so I was having a conversation with them about church and religion and how I grew up in a church setting, and I had questions that wasn't answered because I was taught not to question anything. And I was telling them about a video that someone sent me around April 30th or maybe the beginning of May that one of the pastors in the city of Memphis had recorded in his office, I'm assuming, and talking about learning your history and about the government and about things that has happened in our past and things that happened to places like Tulsa, Oklahoma, that was once known as Little Africa, Black Wall Street. So anyway, I was telling them that until we really find out the origins of religion or find out our true history, that I won't be, supporting them attending any type of church services whatsoever. And in the video that the pastor brought up, he was saying how our government is behind a lot of things that has happened to us. Learn your history, study your history. We only know a minute something about our history. And I was telling Petey and Phoebe that I was in church for a whole lot of years with my grandmother, and they never taught us about our history, about anything that the government does to us or against us. And all we learned about was things that happened so many thousands of years ago, but it never gave us any true evidence of our true history or where we come from, or actually, what our spirituality was. And, in the video, he just said, research your history, study your history. Like, we should be ashamed of not knowing our history. And so I was telling the kids, I was like, well, the pastors never taught us our history, other than what was in the Bible. And that's really the only book they studied and the only book they told us about. So they never told us what angle to study history in. So I got a video that I'm going to attach to this one to show the kids some books that I have and that, they can use to start to learn their history. And I also was telling them about that video that Louis Farrakhan had put up, and he said, know your history. And he was talking about things that happened for years ago and like 65 years of the history that's been taken out of the books and not given to us. So I'm like, these people are prominent figures, they've held a whole lot of services. They have large congregations, and I'm wondering why in 2020 are they just now saying learn your history? Why haven't they used their platforms to tell us our history? Okay, we have a president of the United States that even said, learn your history. So I'm here to tell Petey and Phoebe and anybody else that we have to learn our history, because when you don't know your history, history repeats itself. So I'm going to play a video that I did in response to the video that was put up by the pastor to give somebody some insights and some angles to where they can use to try to learn the history, because apparently they're not going to teach it to us. They want us to learn it, but they're not going to tell you where to start to learn it, who to trust to give it to us, honestly. Okay, so I'm starting with Petey and Phoebe, and I'm trying to teach them different. I want them to learn for themselves, and I want them to gravitate with what resonates to them. I'm not going to push anything on them, and until we find out what the hell is going on and the origins of our history, they won't be attending no services, whether it's in a church or online, so they can hang out with their friends afterwards. Hey y'all, how y'all doing today? Today is Sunday, and I'm coming to you as a follow-up on a video that I put up saying about how a friend of mine sent me a video of Reverend or Pastor Bill Atkins he did a video talking about waking up and about the things going on today, about this virus that's out, about our history, you know. So Bill was talking about in his video that he was talking about the Negro situations, civil rights, the oppositions, and he mentioned something about marching. But what stood out to me was when he said we have to deal with us before we fight them. So in the video he was talking about how our government is against us and basically behind a lot of things that we weren't aware of. So, you know, he said in Hosea 4:6, my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. So he also went on to say that we don't have an inkling of a knowledge, an iota, a minuscule knowledge of black history. So he said you have to have the zeal to want to learn on your own. We got YouTube, we got books to read, we don't have to have a formal class, right? So we don't know what's going on today because we don't know our history. So I'm doing this video because when I was listening to Bill, I'm like, well, shoot, our history go back eons, you know, all the way to 325 AD, the Council of Nicaea. One of the things was the 1793, you know, flu, which is what he was referencing to today's pandemic. He mentioned the Tuskegee experiment, the syphilis experiment over the 600 men. But actually the Tuskegee experiment went on for like a couple years. And so his last thing he mentioned was Tulsa, Oklahoma. But he mentioned a lot of stuff, but like the three major points. Tulsa, Oklahoma, which was in 1921. Well, I've been to a lot of churches, and I've also been to Bill's church as a, you know, with my sister a couple times, and I've been to a funeral there. But with my history of going to church, I can honestly say that I was never taught about any of these events, anything to be aware of government or, you know, nothing. The only thing we were talking about was Adam and Eve, heaven, you know, hell, Jesus. So he said, you know, you can't open your eyes and see what's in front of your face. Okay? He talked about the 60s. He talked about... So I don't understand why the pastors have never taken this chance or taken the chance that they've had when they engage with people in large groups a couple times a week. Why these topics had never come up? You know, why is it that we need to go to YouTube and read books to learn about our history when you all are standing in front of us weekly, you're on the TV, but you ain't mentioning none of these, okay? And all this stuff we probably need, okay? He also said that the America has done horrible things, okay? Your government has done horrible things, all right? But he wants us to research, study, look it up, understand, and learn. So my thing is, why I'm here today is because he never just said what to go learn or what to go study, okay? He just said go study. So we're in 2020. But the world goes back millions of years, okay? So we're going to talk about some things today on what is history. What part of history do we need to look into, okay? So the one thing I want to do is go into some of our history to help us find out where we are today and what's exactly going on. We haven't been taught about history because we've only been taught about the Bible, okay? So today I want to talk a little bit about history and what's the history, okay? And why we are in the situation that we're in. Because I've ran across books in learning history, and this is one of the books I learned about when I first, you know, started reading about history is They Came Before Columbus. by Ivan Van Sertima. Okay, so who came before Columbus? Why were we talking about Christopher Columbus? Why does the pastors, why do they allow us to celebrate Columbus Day? Okay, what do they know about? Hold on, y'all, dropped one of my books. I dropped one of my books. I got several. Matter of fact, I got over 20 books out here that weren't going to go over to that one. So, first of all, you know, like in 2015, I asked about where we came from, or we're going to learn about our history, you know, before we die or whatever. And so before then, I really only knew about the one Bible. Well, actually coming up, I knew about the Old Testament. Then later on, I had to learn about the New Testament, because when I was coming up, the Bibles we read on had thou and thou shalt something, you know, but it wasn't like today's broken down like new, what they call it, the NIV, the New International Version. Okay, so I kept one Bible, because I ran over a video where somebody uses it as a reference to some of the things we've been taught. So one thing that he brought up about in the Bible is how on Acts 5 and 30, where it say Jesus was hung on a tree. But you know, we've always been taught that Jesus died on the cross, or Jesus, because you know, after we started getting in, you know, interacting with the Hispanic community, they, J-E-S-U-S, is pronounced as Jesus, but we pronounce it as Jesus. And I'm not sure, because, you know, it's other names that they pronounce different, but according to the spelling, you know, you sound it out, the shit don't really sound like what they called it. You know, like Colonel, C-O-L-O-N-E-L, Colonel. I don't see how you got Colonel from there. But anyway, Acts 5 and 30 say, excuse me, thanks. What's this? Probably another book. But anyway, it say, the God of our fathers raised up Jesus, whom you murdered by hanging on a tree. So who be hung on? Who in our history has said something about trees? Okay, where about in our history where it say who was hung by trees? So I'm trying to figure out now, where in history did it change from being hung by a tree to died on a cross? So that's one thing we need to look at in our history. Okay, so, and then thinking back on what is our history, we got a book, The African Origin of Civilization. That's a part of history that we probably can look at, or somebody may can look at, to find out that angle of our history. Okay, or we can look at the destruction of civilization. Okay, maybe that's a part of history that we can look at. The destruction of black civilization. Wonder what kind of destruction they talk about. Okay, so we also can go back to history, and let's find out about the history of the Negro Church. Okay, that could be a start on looking back to find out about history. Okay, so we also can take it back to find out about the miseducation of the Negro. Okay, what do you think Carter G. Woodson talking about in the miseducation of the Negro? Well, we could go to history, and we could talk about countering the conspiracy to destroy black boys. Okay, this is Jawanza Kunjufu. I have several of his writings, and he's very informative. He talks about raising black girls, and he has a lot of works, and he's a good author too, and I think he's a psychologist, if I'm not mistaken. So when I look at this book, I got a book that I didn't bring out, but it's Tookie Williams. Okay, so that's somewhere you can start to read about his history too, because Tookie was a gang member, but he changed his life. And then when they started the gangs, it wasn't like for like really gang banging. It was supposed to be like helping people, or working together and keeping the streets safe or whatever. But he ended up writing a series of books, and I think he was really nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize later on, but ultimately they still executed him, and I don't really think he actually did anything. They kind of charged it with some actions of some people who were following him or what they did. So it's like if I own something and they got people who working under me and they do something, I could be charged for the shit that they do, you know, in the court of law. So we could talk about history as far as like medical apartheid. Like a lot of the medical industry today, and a lot of the scientific experiments, and where they learned a lot about medicine and who was studied to learn medicine. Okay, so we could talk about the immortal life of Henrietta Lacks, where even today the cells that were taken from Henrietta Lacks are still being used in science today. John J. Hopkins Hospital, one of the hospitals that's in the news today about the study of this coronavirus, they have contributed to the background and the story of the immortal life of Henrietta Lacks. And I want to say they used her cells to do stem cell research, cancer research, a whole lot of stuff. I'm talking about like maybe $1 trillion industry, and her children didn't get one dime, not nothing. Okay, so we can talk about history, whereas Dr. Francis Chris Wilson, okay, the ISIS paper. This is a good book. It talks about history. It talks about the inferiority of a certain people, and it talks about she brings synopsis about the black tie, and she wouldn't debate you unless you read this book, Racial Matters. Okay, so the FBI's secret file on Black America from 1960 to 1972. Okay, so she wouldn't even debate you until you read this book, which is a lot of the reasons why I don't debate people who argue with me about the Bible and about why I stopped believing in religion. Because if you haven't read these books I've read, you can't debate me with your Bible that you read. Because first off, your Bible says that Jesus was hung by a tree. But yet we've been taught that he died on the cross. And also in the Bible is certain things, like one thing I used to have questions on is about the letters to the 7 churches. And I used to always say, well, how do I know which letter belongs to me? Which letter pertains to me? Which letter I should be looking at? I don't know. So let's delve back into history some more. And to my muse, I have 2 muses. One of them is Jane Elliott. I don't know if you know her. And the other one is Dick Gregory. And I also have Dick Gregory's book, Nigger. And one of the things about Dick Gregory is that I like, Dick Gregory held it down. He kept it real. He went against the grain. He uncovered a lot of conspiracies. I saw Dick Gregory. I went to a couple of his seminars, and I actually saw him here in Memphis, and that's when he was getting old, you know, the long gray beard or whatever. But he has a lot of receipts, okay? And every time he came, he ain't come with no bullshit. He didn't come with no opinion. He came with receipts. He had all kind of files, and he had a whole lot of people who would leak information to him because they knew what he was doing. They knew he wanted to help people. They knew he wanted to raise awareness amongst a certain set of people. So there's a lot of others who risked their careers and, you know, their safety or whatever, and gave Dick a lot of our information, and he researched it. And I remember on one of the videos, Dick said he ain't paid no phone bill. He said his phone bill didn't never get cut off, and he ain't never pay a phone bill, and that's how he knew it was tapped. He said when he used to call his wife, he used to say the alphabet backwards. And another thing about Dick that I liked is that Well, I couldn't understand when he used to call his wife, he used to talk about her saying bitch, bitch this, bitch that. But then he broke the etymology down and said, you know, our enemy, when they knew you loved something or someone, they'll take it from you. So he acted like he didn't give a damn about his wife, so he called her bitch and talked bad about it, and they never fucked with her. He didn't have to worry about her getting messed with because he treated her in the public as if she wasn't shit to him. But all the time he loved his wife. That was his backbone. They had a whole lot of kids. I won't say damn near 10 or something. But anyway, he was one of the people that I listened to that helped me steer away from religion. Because I used to listen to him and he used to say, you couldn't tell my grandmama nothing about her Jesus. And my first thing, I used to be like, what he mean by her Jesus? You know, but anyway, when I started learning things, it was like going to get a new car. You know how you see a car and you see a color, you like, damn, I like that burnt orange. I ain't seen that color. So you go to the dealer and you buy that burnt orange car. And then, as soon as you pull off the lot, there you go. Burnt orange cars popping up everywhere. Here you go to Walgreens or get back and go to get in your car. There go 2 orange cars on the parking lot, and you looking like, damn, which one mine? I didn't see this color at first. Shit, that was the color I wanted. It wasn't no common color. And now you see them popping up everywhere. That's kind of how the knowledge is. I'm gonna let that plane go by. I don't know if my sound is messing up. But that's how knowledge is. It comes to you, it just pop up at you. You could just be flipping the channels and it might be something that's on there and it just strike your attention. And you learn from it. Who knows? So, Bill was talking about learning. He told you I talked about the Hosea 4 and 6 or whatever. Talking about how we perish for lack of knowledge. Dr. Ben got a book, The Need for a Black Bible. Okay? Why is that? Why do you think there's a need for a black Bible when you got your Holy Bible that you look at all the time? Which Holy Bible means some book. Helios, Biblios. So, then I messed around and ran across a book called The Historical Jesus and the Mythical Christ. So, Gerald Massey wrote this book. This is something that you may want to look into to learn history. And he says, Separating Fact from Fiction. So that's a good book where you can start on history. So, one thing that I learned about when I started on my journey also was, you know, the RBG, the red, black, and green, the flag and stuff. And I was like, oh man, that's something, that's for us. You know, and I started learning about the greatness of our people, not just about being a 400-year slave or in servitude or whatever. And then I ended up learning about Marcus Garvey, okay, who is the founder of the flag, the red, black, and green. We don't learn about Marcus Garvey. The church didn't teach us. School didn't teach me about Marcus Garvey. So, but guess what? I embraced the history and the knowledge and the information on Marcus Garvey. I loved his work. I loved his drive. Marcus Garvey owned a fleet of ships doing importing and exporting. We don't know nothing about that. Well, we don't know nothing about Marcus Garvey unless you learned it on your own. So, Marcus Garvey, when he did the flag, he said the red was for the blood, the green was for the land, and the black was for the skin. So this is definitely a part of history you need to learn. Okay? So, he was talking about your government. You know, not our government, not his government, but the government. And so, when I think about the government or whatever and history or whatever, you know, the first thing I thought about was these two people, Malcolm and Martin. Okay? So, let me take this out. It's on my notes. So, Martin, While We Can't Wait. which is significant to today because, like Bill says, we don't need to wait. We need to study. We need to learn our history. So we can't wait. Okay? And I think this is one of Martin Luther King's speeches that they put in the book. When he was in jail, he wrote a speech. And Alex Haley wrote this book about Malcolm X. And I know a lot of us know about Malcolm X. But for some reason, we learn more about Martin Luther King than Malcolm X. And why is that? So, what history says is the government may have used Martin Luther King to integrate us. And later on, Martin Luther King said he may have integrated us into a burning house. So, was Malcolm X telling us about the burning house? That's some history we need to delve into. So, also, he was talking about the government, and we don't know our history. So, one of the things that I contribute of us not knowing our history is because y'all didn't teach it to us. Okay? So, as a black preacher, and the deacons or whatever, or the pastors, the apostles, or we know whatever the different names are, I think it was your right and responsibility to teach us about history. Because like right now to say you need to learn your history, know your history, study your history. I mean, it's so many different avenues of history. So what part of history? Okay? So I'm going to talk about some stuff that's going on in recent history. So we're talking about this coronavirus or whatever. So I've been reading or hearing that they say Bill Gates is mentioning, but he's spearheading like the coronavirus pandemic stuff, information. He's very knowledgeable of the information. He's funded a lot of stuff. I've been reading that he also has patented the coronavirus, and in order to patent something, you have to own it. You created it, that's yours. So I don't know about that. But history says Bill Gates is some kin to Margaret Sanger. You see that? The Negro Project. So, why is the Negro Project so important? Well, some of us, when we're born, we're taught about religion and somebody coming to save you. You know what I mean? Somebody coming to save us. Well, another certain set of people are taught that the earth don't need too many people on it. It needs to have a certain amount of people on it. So it's up to you to control the population. So they are informed of which people need to be eradicated and controlled via the population. Why is that? I don't know. I don't know why, or I don't know why. I don't know who gave dominion to a certain set of people to say what is supposed to be done on earth, okay, or in the world. Because when we're born, our mama be the first person who we engage with and who we rely on to teach us information. So who gave someone else's mama the idea, or someone else's daddy the idea that it's their responsibility to control the population of a whole world, countries, continents, cities, states, neighborhoods? Where they get that from? So then that leads me for history to research on what might be going on, because it's certain set of people out here playing chess, while some people out here playing checkers, where some people was given this to read. I'm sorry. Some people were given this to read, while others were given this to read. Okay? While some people out here playing checkers, it's people out here playing chess. And they're studying the 48 laws of power. Okay? Alright. So, that brings me back again to another point on why are we like we are? How is it that somebody's able to control so much, have so much control or whatever? What is it that they want to do? Okay, so, and another thing about history I want to talk about is symbolism. So, and the music, and the different people who've been trying to teach us about history in the past, and who probably wasn't able to just stand in front of everybody and have a service to teach everybody something. So, I was looking back at Earth, Wind, and Fire. So, what was Earth, Wind, and Fire telling us on their music covers and stuff? Y'all see that? What is that? Symbolism. What was Earth, Wind, and Fire talking about on their album covers? You see that? Who's that in that chair right there? Y'all see that? Can you see that? Let me see. Okay. Well, is that a Sphinx right there on that album cover? Look at it. Is that the Sphinx? Where did the Sphinx come from? What the hell was Earth, Wind, and Fire trying to tell us about history? Okay? So, I know Bob Marley told us about the red race. Red race! Bob Marley told us that. So, I want to get with the kids today, and we're going to talk about some of these things that's going on in history. Because Bill Atkins say, you got to know your history. Okay? He's also talking about plastic coffins. Whoa. He's also talking about plastic coffins in Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, and Mississippi. Expecting death. Why is that? Is there something that was orchestrated? Okay? So, I'm going to talk about some other things in history, and then I'm going to go ahead and let us go. Bill talked about 3 things. He said, I only told you about 3 things, but there's more. And so one thing that was significant to me when he talked about, I think it was 1793 Philadelphia. Let's see. Yeah, that was one of the first things. The 1793 Philadelphia, the yellow fever. So, I'm going to talk about, well, I'm just going to mention the 1985 bombing in Philadelphia, of the move of, where it was in West Philadelphia, from people that had a movement going called the MOVE, M-O-V-E, and it was a MOVE compound. They bombed it. A bombing. The government did that too. So, it's a lot of other things, and I'm not here today to tell you everything about what history is. I just want to know what part of history do we need to focus on, because he says study history. So history, there's a vast information, an array of knowledge of history. So what part of history do we need to learn, or we need to be focusing on to help us out today? Okay? Because before the civil rights, we had a history, a great history before we were integrated. We had businesses. We had things going on for ourselves, and we hadn't had nothing going on for ourselves since then. And why is that? What was the reason for that? Okay, I'm not going to tell you all my opinion. You got to get your own opinion. But I'm just giving you some niblets to go on to start researching on your history. Because we wasted a lot of years learning about this, but we ain't been learning about this. Okay? And it's a whole lot of other things we hadn't learned about, and I would love to talk about them. I love to put to do topics on to find out. And one of the things I want to talk about is like the shooting of Martin Luther King. And even if that was his birth name, because I've been reading stuff to here, that wasn't even his birth name, but I don't know. You know, that's another part of history that we have to research. But I want to talk about the history of Martin Luther King and his death, because it stands out to me that when he was shot, you know, all the pictures that we see of him on the back when he shot, everybody pointing. So do you mean to tell me if we're standing in a group and gunshots rang out, we're going to stand there to point to say where the shot came from, or is everybody going to get their ass out the way? Okay? So I saw a video one time of Reverend Billy Cowles, who was out there too that day, and he, during his speech, said, I moved out the way so the government can have a clear shot. Okay? And you can hear the crowd saying, whoa, whoa. So, what did Billy do? That's a part of history that we need to look at and think about. Okay? So, I want to thank Bill for saying, learn your history, because I've been waiting on the opportunity to find out how can I try to teach our history to the children, because we don't know our history. It's why we fucked up today. When you don't know your history, you repeat your history. But it's so much history that we got to figure out what part of history pertains to us today. What part of history is going to help us today. Okay? Because like you saying, hell, everybody might die. But I want to be able to teach the kids something who might live, so they can have something to go back to avoid the traps that we've been put into. Because you ain't going to tell me that in 2020 is just now the time to talk about what our government doing. When I know the religious sectors have had rallies for people. Okay? You all have helped us decide who to vote for, whether it was Republican or Democrat. Okay? And when you know a lot of these people have history too. Hillary Clinton, she was talking about calling our young black men predators. We got to bring them to a heel. And guess who Hillary Clinton's mentor was? Margaret Sanger. So, that's something to think about. Look in your history. Look up Bill Clinton. Is it true that the Clintons are behind the mass incarceration of our black men? Is it? I think we got a lot to deal with history. We just got to figure out where we're going to start. And a lot of people who only read that one book, don't come talking to me about that book. If you ain't opened your mind and read any of these other books I've shown you, don't fucking debate me. Don't fucking be argumentative with me. You need to get your pencil and piece of paper and take notes like I do. Okay? Because I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages of notes just from Bill Atkins' video. Okay? So I'm not going to go through all of that because I'm not going to make this video long. But what I'm saying is, thank you, Bill. Thank you for letting us know that we are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. And thank you for letting us know we've spent many motherfucking years in the church and still don't have no knowledge. And why is that?